welcome to the season finale of The Big Game Hunters. I'm Mike.
And I'm Tom. Just a quick update on Kickstarter. Didn't happen. But that doesn't mean we're not going to try to film Season 3, so look forward to that if we're lucky. Today we're going to take a look at the game you can learn in 30 seconds, Loco. But first, Chit Chat.
In today's Chit Chat, we're going to be wrapping up the season, just kind of giving our thoughts on how it went down, what we liked, what we didn't like, and what you might expect in Season 3. We hope you enjoy it. Welcome to our final Chit Chat of the season. So in a very early episode this season, Tom interviewed me about the topic of game criticism. So we thought for the last one here, I would interview him about his experiences as a host this season. So Tom, first question. Did you enjoy co-hosting the Big Game Hunters?
It is hard.
I know it's a tremendous honor.
It is hard to live up to the shadow of Patrick Kohlhaas. I think I filled at least 9/10 of his shoes, if not fully.
It's a solid A you're giving yourself?
Sure. I think it's really hard to compare. I don't have a whole great breadth of game experience, especially compared to you, but I think even compared to Patrick. I know he was still relatively new as a gamer at the time, but like he was in it, and
I think it helped that he was at college with me,
yeah.
and we would play regularly, together, so
Right.
that he was learning as we were filming.
Sure. But the biggest challenge for me was our filming format, really. We filmed all 25 episodes in the course of just 3 weeks, basically. And not only does that make it, it's great for adapting. Like, you look at first episode, Pocket Battles Tom, and boy, is he, let's just say, that guy needs some work. But
I wasn't going to say it.
But Loco episode Tom, last episode Tom, he's all right. You can work with that guy. But really, the challenge there is not only just the normal being on camera stuff, but the chit chats really were really hard because we film in such a concise format. Being able to not only come up with topics, but then have a good understanding of those topics, so that you can have a good back and forth. I'll be the first to admit, and I'm sure some of the viewers have noticed, that not all of the chit chats are really too chatty.
A lot of them are very informational.
That's true.
So, there's, I'll read a blog or I'll watch a video and it's something that I think is interesting. And I just kind of put it out there. I feel like it's kind of a nice way for us to serve as a kind of board game, an interesting facts about board game feed for people.
Sure. I do think it's important to have discussions like that out there for the community. We're starting to see it more these days. You mentioned the criticism Chit Chat, and it's that kind of talking about games that we're really hoping to drive with our show.
Yeah, and Jesse Dean wrote an article on 2D6, and he reposted on BGG that kind of drove that. Like, I'm not the only one who, in response to that article, started talking more critically about games. I was beforehand, but that, he kind of reminded me, or made me think more cognizantly about the maybe problem or hole in the gaming.
So going forward, one of the things we're sort of looking at for Season 3 is if we want to keep the Chit Chat around or if we want to modify it a little. We haven't made any decisions on that point, but do you have any thoughts on how the Chit Chat might change?
It's too early for me to say.
Yeah, really me too.
Well, what would you like to see? What did you not like about the Chit Chat as it happened? So I know you said it was difficult.
Yeah, the only problem I really have is the format, having to have so many prepared in just a block at a time. That's really hard. If you have even just a week between episodes of filming, it would open up so many more doors.
Listen to some podcasts, take it all in, let it noodle around.
So I think the format would support itself really great if we're filming differently. But at the same time, if we're still filming in the same 3-week block, a bunch of episodes at once, not all of the chit chats can be as in depth as they are, unfortunately. Sure. I'm afraid that if we kept that kind of critical format, it's going to really turn into more reporting than it is discussion. I think that would just not be as useful to people. There's plenty of other podcasts and things out there that probably will do it better.
Sure. Did you think the Chit Chats, that said, did you think the Chit Chats added something, or do you think they were worth doing
they
this
definitely
time,
helped.
even though they were hard?
They were definitely enlightening to me, even the ones where I didn't really say anything. That was usually because I was like, wow, that's good information, Mike. Tell me more about that. So yes, they're definitely enlightening. Like you said, there's a lot of information in them. It's just actually doing the work for it, I'm not sure it can sustain itself in the short block format.
Sure. What else did you think about this season? What kind of things like technical issues? So the background, the shirts, things like that, the set. How do you think all that panned out this season? I know you weren't a part of season one, but as compared to season one and moving forward, what are your thoughts on the kind of technical aspects of filming this show?
Well, I certainly haven't seen the finished thing yet. We're still filming.
Sure.
But the set looks great.
We've seen the dailies, so to speak.
Yeah, the set looks great. The wall behind us, I was really impressed when it started to come together. It looks great.
I'm
definitely gonna need to get a picture of that. Of just me
right now.
And I might have to take Patrick out also. He judges me.
You could just stand in front of his face. So
yeah, it's hard to get past the judgment.
Well,
it's a shadow, really. It's a shadow that only is cast on this chair. It's a problem. But other than that, no real technical issues. We have a great producer.
Pay raise. So what did you think then about the other section of the show? So we talked about the Chit Chat. What about tell us about how the breakdown came about. I think that was a big kind of project that we put together very kind of late in the game, right? Really before we started filming.
Right before filming.
What were go over some of our reasons for doing that?
Well, I was thinking about how I'm going to contribute to the show. While we're filming, we're staying with a friend, and you and I are sharing a room. And so
are we?
And we'd have lots of conversations back and forth. But while we were having those conversations, I'm just thinking, what am I really bringing to the table here? My ability to analyze is really kind of like I want to put numbers on things. That's just the way I look at stuff. Whenever I have to develop a business plan or something, I'm all about make sure the numbers support the words you're trying to say. So all that's running through my mind when we're having conversations, and then I remembered you said from stuff from first season, you said things about how game can either be fast and slow and short and long. And then we were having a conversation, you and I, about how luck and skill often balances each other. And those three things just sort of congealed into my mind as numbers, like stat blocks. And then your idea, when I expressed that, your idea was to put them on sliding scales. And then the rest just flowed from there. We both started coming up with opposed scales, and the actual list of the 9 things on the breakdown, the 9 sliding scales, came down really quickly. And then we spent some time just seeing if there's anything we missed. We came up with the 2 things for trophy scales because they didn't have opposites, and the rest is history.
So we didn't have opposites. Why did those possess opposites? I guess talk a little bit more about that. Why did we decide to do it the way we did it?
Well, for originality, there's no well, first of all, the sliding scales, the idea is that one side and the 2 opposed sides neither is negative or positive. We mentioned that in our first Chit Chat about the breakdown. Unfortunately, I kind of forgot that a little bit when preparing the breakdowns. I mean, it's always there in my head, but I think my own preference for games started to show through on some of my reasons for giving what we gave. So going forward, I would really try to rephrase everything so that whatever I have to say about the reasons for short or long, it's a positive spin on it, right? So an example of where I did that this season, I really focused on trying to do that this season, would be the Courier's breakdown. I can't remember exactly which metric, but one of them...
It led to quite a debate because you said in the breakdown that the Courier's box looks prominent on your shelf.
Right. It was the portability grandeur one. Right. Okay, well, now there's a separate problem. Okay, so look at portability grandeur for Couriers as an example of me putting things in a positive light. But that particular metric on that sliding scale doesn't really work. We didn't realize this right away, or maybe we did, but we didn't think it would be a problem. But it later became a problem because portability and grandeur don't perfectly oppose each other. What we're looking at here are 2 separate scales that we've merged into one.
That are related, closely related.
They are very closely related.
But you're right, not perfect.
Right. So on the grandeur side, whatever its opposite would be like normal, bland, basic stuff. And on the portability side, its opposite would be a large game, large, expansive kind of game. So we put those 2 together, but then when you start considering those 2 things, you can, this is one of the scales where if you subtract from one, you're not necessarily adding to the other. That's why that one adds a bit of confusion. I think we should take a quick break. We're getting a sign from the producer that we're running out of time, and this segment isn't over yet.
Welcome back. So before we took a break, I was talking with Tom about his kind of brainchild on the Big Game Hunters, the breakdown. Tom, you had just mentioned how the breakdown is composed of different sliding scales. Neither one we conceive as being positive or negative. So what are your other thoughts on the breakdown, Tom? You seem like you had more to say on that topic.
I do. There was a little confusion for me, but for us in talking about it, the immersion abstraction scale, just because a game has high abstraction doesn't mean it's an abstract game.
Yes.
I tended, when talking about games, to call it an abstract game, even though it wasn't truly an abstract game. It may have high abstraction, but it wasn't truly an abstract game. I think in retrospect, I would have liked to name that something else. I'm not sure what we would have called it, but just to sort of avoid that confusion. Because if you're just looking at one of the breakdown sheets and looking for abstract games, you would probably look straight for that.
True. I do think that abstract games have a nearly 100 level of abstraction, so they're certainly connected. But I do know what you mean. The technical abstract game category on BGG would not encompass all the games we gave abstraction.
Right. My other minor quibble with the breakdown, I hate the word completeness. It bothers me.
Yeah, you'd expressed that early in the program.
But we started filming. I didn't never bother to break out the thesaurus, so completeness it is. I will lobby for a change in season 3 of that term.
Do you have it? Have you, in the last 25 episodes, come up with a new term for it?
No, haven't given a single bit of thought. Too busy working on Chit Chat.
Understandable.
And I guess the only other thing I have to say about the breakdown is on our trophy scales, those are neat. I like that we did it. I feel like we're missing one. I really want to put one that just gives like our show rating. We couldn't really come up with a good way to do that.
As opposed to the out of 10 out of 10?
Out of 10 out of 10.
Really?
Like conceptually something that's like an average between you and me, but that doesn't really work. Somebody can do that math himself. I'm not sure what to put there. It just feels like we're missing one. You need a third one. I'm not sure what it would be.
I have to say I kind of like the Siskel and Ebert nature of the 2 scores. I think that I don't mind giving it 2 scores. I kind of like it. We did differ tremendously on certain games. For instance, I wouldn't want to give Munchkin a 3 just because I give it a 1 and you give it a 5.
Right.
I don't, that really doesn't reflect my distaste for the game or your apparent taste for it. So
tolerance, really.
One thing I thought was interesting, kind of moving on to the next section of the show, is the pro-con reviews. There were a few where I think the score you had in your head at the beginning of the section maybe changed live on camera before the viewer's eyes.
Yeah, it did several times, yeah. So when we're playing the games and like talking about the breakdown of the games, that's really different than like internalizing the pro and cons about the games, right? So when we're working on it and I'm writing on the iPad about write down the pros and cons, I'm really working in like working memory type stuff. I'm like, all right, we're gonna say this or we're gonna say this. You kind of have to remember the talking points about each one.
Yeah.
And you're not really internalizing them. It's a little bit like memorizing lines. But when we're doing the actual point counterpoint thing, there's no learning involved. You just sit there, listen, and you do have to remember your next line. But there's prompts. It's not that hard. So that's really the first time I come across, I start internalizing the points and counterpoints. I'm like, that's a good point. I do like this game. So I'd go into the pro-con thinking whatever, and then come out thinking, no, much higher or much lower.
Was it that because you weren't confident in your own pros that you contributed, or
no,
that you didn't?
It's more that like I said, I'm just not considering the whole package. I'm just like, this is a pro. This is one thing I liked about the game. That doesn't necessarily mean I'm considering the other things that are going into the pro list. Sometimes I contributed. Sometimes I didn't. But yeah, it's not until the discussion that you start to see them as a whole package, at least for me, and that's all that went into it.
Do you think it'll have obviously we haven't aired yet, but do you think it'll have the same effect on viewers? Do you think people will be swayed by the arguments one way or the other? Or do you think these are kind of things that people generally already know about the games?
Well,
we talked at length about these pros and cons. I mean, can you maybe at least walk us through the process of coming up with the pro-con list?
The process, after we play a game a few times, we do the number breakdown of it to sort of like give us a framework for what the highs and lows are of the game, if you want to look at it that way. And then we just start listing pros and cons Generally, it's what did you like about the game? What do you not like about the game? Some of those come out really easily. We just 1, 2, 3 got them right away. Some of them you have to really think like what specific aspect leaves a bad taste in your mouth or made it seem really fun, things like that.
Sometimes taking the game out of the box, the pieces almost felt like totems from Inception.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You start looking at the game and you remember, oh, right. Yeah. I hated when this happened.
Yeah.
And now for the list, we would frequently end up with more pros or cons than we used. Can you walk us through the process of choosing, paring them down?
Well, we did usually try to pair them together so that, like a general term, like we might list balance as a pro or a con, elegance or something, and then we'd list the reasons those are. We give it that moniker, if you will, and then in assigning them, doing the walkthrough of them, we do try to pair them together so that one pro is followed by a counterpoint that sort of relates back to that one. That isn't always possible, but we do like to give that like back and forth. I think though that you mentioned if the viewers are going to find it useful. I think most people who seek out reviews of games are really interested in buying the game, right?
Sure.
So they're not only going to look at our point counterpoint, but they're going to look at stuff like the breakdown for like,
yes,
if they know anything about their own gaming habits, they'll be able to look at that sheet and, okay, it's got a lot of luck. I like dice.
Yeah.
There you go.
I mentioned several times that portability is really big on my list because I have very limited shelf space. So portability is something I really wanted on the breakdown because it's something that I'm always asking with the game.
Yeah.
So anything else about the show? I know that you weren't very involved with the tutorial section of the show.
No, yeah. Thank God.
So yeah, I guess why did you not want to do the tutorials? Why such a distaste for the tutorials? Why avoid that part of it?
2 reasons. I don't have a real great amount of experience teaching games, and I know you do. So just from a production standpoint, I thought, why put the rookie in charge half the time of explaining a game? That'll just
because our initial concept was to switch.
Yeah. That would just slow things down, really. And like I said, in coming up with the breakdown, I'm really considering my strengths. Well, how am I going to contribute to the show? And so when that idea of the breakdown just sort of gelled together, I thought this is perfect for me.
Something you can take ownership of,
right.
Certainly. So is there anything else you'd like to say about this season, Tom?
No, I think that about wraps it up.
Is there anything the viewers can look forward to next season? Any ideas you have? Anything you'd like to maybe spoil for the future?
Wow, I can't really think of anything. We haven't really come up with any format.
Yeah, I didn't mean to put you on the spot. Just thought anything that was rolling around in your head about it?
I don't have any specific ideas, but I'm sure we'll come up with a surprise or two.
I think so too. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed co-hosting this season of the Big Game Hunters, Tom. I know it was a pleasure for me to work with you. We had our ups and downs, but I think we came up with some really good content this season. I really enjoyed our pro and con reviews. I liked the back and forth.
Yeah.
I hope you guys liked it too. I hope you enjoyed the whole season, really. So yeah, I think that about wraps it up. And now I'm going to get 30 seconds to teach you all Loco. The Loco box calls it the clever card game that you can learn in 30 seconds. Our producer has challenged me to do just that. So I'm going to teach you Reiner Knizia's Loco in exactly 30 seconds. Here we go. The goal of the game is to have the most points at the end of 1 round per player. To begin, randomly take out 3 cards for a 3-player game or 2 cards for a 4-player game. Keep them hidden. Then deal out the rest of the cards. On your turn, first play a card replacing the last card played of that color. Then take a chip. The chip you take does not need to match the card you played. The round ends when all 6 cards of one color have been played. At that time, each player trades in their chips. The chips are worth the number of points equal to the last card played of the matching color. I have 3 seconds left, and you just learned Loco. Now that you've learned how to play Loco in only 30 seconds, we're going to take a look at it in our point-counterpoint review.
Because Mike and I agree about the game, I'm going to roll to see who will argue for it and who will argue against. If it's even, I'll take the pros, and if it's odd, he will. Odd once again.
So, as with many times this season, I'm going to tell you how much I love games, particularly Loco.
And I'm going to tell you to just keep it away.
So, Tom, a buzzword I've used a lot this season, you're probably tired of hearing it, is elegance. This is an extremely elegant game.
Am I.
Maybe the best example all season. There's not an ounce of fat on Loco. 30 cards, 25 chips, no questions asked. There's just, there's really not too much to say about it. It looks at first glance like Uno. I mean, Loco, Uno, you think, nice, easy, light family card game. Nothing to really take away from this one. Wrong. There's so much gameplay with this. There's so much reading other people. There's such a deep kind of social aspect. There's such a, there's that constant, Knizia decision of, do I play my card now or do I hold it? And he's captured that yet again. He's captured that lightning in this bottle in what is such a very simple, clean, you can literally earn it in 30 seconds package.
Well, I can't disagree. It's true everything you say, but you have, my good friend, misled our audience by saying that there's not an ounce of fat on this game. There is. The Loco mechanic of saying Loco when you play the 0 card has no purpose in this game.
Though to be fair, that Trap the Unwary, I don't think was the designer's fault.
I don't believe Reiner Knizia included it himself.
I don't think it was in Flinka Plinka, so.
But I think it's there. It is an extra bit. It's probably there to liken the game to Uno, but therein lies the problem. Because Uno is such a casual game, if you approach this game in the same fashion, it's really going to rob you of that depth of gameplay that makes this game so elegant.
Would you say that it makes it difficult when other people are playing suboptimally in this one?
Well, right. If you're not considering all the relevant strategies of the game, if you're just, let's see, there's one green chip left, I'll take that one. if you're not making the kinds of considerations you need to make to play optimally at this game, and the other people at the table are, they're not going to fully experience the joy of this game. And if people are just playing it casually, they're also never going to realize what an in-depth game it is. Yeah,
and I'm glad you said that, because that's a perfect segue for the depth. There's so much strategy in this beyond just the card counting. First of all, you take out 2 or 3 cards, depending on the number of players at the beginning, so you'll never know with absolute certainty whether a particular card is available to another player or it's not even in the game. So there's that constant kind of risk-reward of saying, well, I'm very heavily invested in red. I haven't seen that Loco yet. I haven't seen that 0. Is Tom holding it, or is it out of the game completely and I'm totally safe? Do I have to worry about green ending? It's got 5 cards, but the last green might be in one of the ones that's out. So there's that constant thing there. The way you play the game based on your seeding. So you play 1 round per player. That's critical because every round there'll be a different first player.
Yep.
There'll be a different leader. And the first player is going to have advantages and disadvantages over the second, third, fourth player. If you're last, you can kind of scope out the board a little more. You can say, okay, well, I see how certain things are developing. I see what other people are taking. I know what colors I'm going to go to nuke. I know what colors I'm going to try to win big with. I know who I want to try to work with to for one color. So there's that whole aspect. You have to think about, do I want to make a big play on my lead turn when I'm first? Or do I want to try to make a big play when I'm third, going right behind the guy who I'm trying to catch? There's a lot to it. In trying to catch somebody, that brings me to the last thing. Taking into account the current score. So because it's played over 3 or 4 rounds and score carries over, taking into account who's the leader and how aggressively you should play to catch him, or if you're leading, who you can not worry about. So for instance, if you're 10 points up on another player from a previous round, you don't have to worry about competing with that player. You can just ride that. So you can say, well, if I piggyback off of him and he does well, that's a win for both of us because he's going to go to a round, but I'm going to stay ahead of him. So there's just so many elements that are not obvious, not immediately obvious in this one, that you have to factor in your play, which I love.
It's true that all of those strategic elements exist in the game, except they're too easily countered by one simple strategy. I just take the same chip you take. All you've got to do to keep an even score with the first person in the first round, assuming that person's going to do well, all you got to do is take the same chips they take, and if everyone in the row does that, it's the people at the end who get the bad score because there's not enough chips. But it's the people in the beginning who get the good score. Mm-hmm. It's just too easy to copy a strategy here.
I think the other problem with the copying is that if I have 2 of one chip and you're copying me or duplicating me, you're taking the same chips, that works out fine if I get the lion's share. If I can get 3 of those chips and have you, the copier, with 2, that's okay.
But if a third person down the line does the same thing, they only get 1.
Yeah. So then as soon as you're equally invested with somebody copying you, that's really frustrating. But that said, that whole element of reading the opponents, reading the other players around the table is really crucial. So not only do you have to take all those factors I just talked about into account, but there's a big aspect in this game of getting in the other player's heads.
Yeah.
So, if I see somebody play, 3 green cards over the course of a round, I can pretty much know if it hasn't been nuked yet that, he's holding the nuke. Or if it hasn't, if nobody's dropped the 5 on it yet, then I know he pretty much has the 5. Mm-hmm. The way he's been playing tells me certain things about it. Usually somebody's opening chip can tell you a lot about the direction they're going to go and what cards they're holding. If somebody plays a blue 2 and takes a red chip as their opening play, I know I'm pretty confident that they're holding 2 red cards. If I'm holding 2 red cards, it's not a big leap to make to figure out kind of with pretty good accuracy what's in their hand. Mm-hmm. So there's just a huge psychological game going on right above the table with this one to complement all the other factors you have to account.
So, assuming you can get past everyone at the table is taking the game as seriously as the game deserves, and assuming that you don't have somebody who's just trying to piggyback off somebody else by copying, you still have the problem of the first round of the game being really important to the overall score. Mm. If you have one player who gets a breakout score, even if it's as little as 10 points, which can be a lot, a breakout score in the first round really determines the strategy for that player for the rest of the game. All they have to do is play careful and hedge their victory.
Yeah.
First round, way too important for such a strategic game.
Yeah, being able to coach at the first round is a legitimate problem. I will totally give you that one. But that small knock aside, what are your thoughts on it, Tom?
Loco is awesome! I've said before that I really like Guillotine because it's so portable and small and I can bring it anywhere really and play it with whoever's around. Loco is in the same vein for me, and it might actually replace Guillotine because it has a depth of gameplay that will appeal to a bunch more people than the very casual Guillotine. This was my first introduction to it. I've since learned that it's available in a bunch of other forms that unfortunately I'm not interested in, so I'm going to have to find a copy of Loco like this or make my own. I don't know. But this game is awesome. I was introduced to it through this show, and I can't get enough of playing it. I'm going to give it a 9 out of 10.
Wow. Yeah, first it was Flinka Plinka, then it was Quandary, the most overproduced game in the universe. Look it up. And then it was Loco, and now you can get it as Botswana, which has been given some sort of animal theme for which I am not interested.
It's just extra theme.
It feels, it's obviously completely tacked on, and there's no getting around it. It's like has little plastic animals. It's very silly. But even if you had to get Botswana, it's a great game. I agree. 9 out of 10, I'm very surprised. I'm kind of wavering between 8 and 9 myself. But because I don't want to get outdone here, I'm going to also give it a 9 because I really do like Loco. I love, like you said, the kind of blend of casual and hardcore gameplay that it brings to the table. Anyone can play it. It takes 30 seconds to learn, but a lifetime to master. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I feel like we're overanalyzing it. Like, we've said quite a lot in this review that I'm sure there are people out there who are going to say, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, you're getting in each other's heads, really? And to that I might say maybe it's just kind of we're overstating it. But
if you verbalize those thoughts, maybe you're going a little too far about it. But all that stuff is definitely there in the game.
Yeah, there's definitely something there. Yeah, there's definitely some reading. So yes, I will also give this a 9 out of 10, and I do enjoy Loco quite a bit.
All right, that is our review of Loco. Get ready for the breakdown. This is the breakdown of Reiner Knizia's Loco. Even with 4 players, it doesn't take long to play, so we give Loco 95 short and 5 long. We give it 95 fast and 5 slow. If you're playing it at all, you're interested in what cards your opponents play and what chips they take. Loco gets 15 luck and 85 skill. It's possible to get a good or a bad draw, but your score is usually a reflection of playing your cards wisely and paying close attention to your opponents. We give Loco a perfect 100 in strategy. Every decision in the game plays into the end game. We give it a perfect 100 for interaction. Every play you make informs every other player's decision. We give it a perfect 100 for abstraction. There's no theme to the game, just colors, numbers, and chips. We give it a perfect 100 for simplicity. You really can learn this game in 30 seconds. We give it a perfect 100 for portability. It's a very small game and you can play it almost anywhere. And lastly, we give it a perfect 100 for completeness. There's no room for or need of additional expansion. On our trophy scales, we give it 2 trophies for originality. It's in the same family as many other card-laying games, but the unique aspects of reading your opponents makes for some interesting depth of gameplay. For value, we give it 3 trophies, if you can find it at a reasonable price. Both Mike and Tom give Loco a 9 out of 10, and that is the breakdown. Well, that wraps up Season 2 of the Big Game Hunters. Hope you enjoyed the show. Keep in touch with us on our Facebook and Twitter pages. Get some news about Season 3.
Thanks for playing.
Always judging me.